You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
Welcome to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast. On today's episode, Paul and me, I'm Anna, hi, are talking about the adventure game Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Obviously by LucasArts, or not obviously, maybe you thought we were going to talk about the movie. Surprise, we probably will. So get ready to join us on a thrilling journey as we revisit the classic game. So grab your whip, put on your fedora, and let's start the adventure. You got to follow that up though, Paul.
We will do none of that. I don't even own a fedora.
No, I don't actually have a fedora either. That's terrible. Well, we're telling them to. What if they have it?
Why are neither of us denying ownership of a whip here? That's the weird thing. It's just
that's a good point. You can't always have all three, but
yeah. Well, I have several head of cattle. That's my excuse. So I'm just gonna leave that out there to be like, really?
Yeah,
but,
no,
maybe.
You should.
Maybe.
Yeah,
so the game, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Anna watched all three Indiana Joneses over the last 3 weeks. She done. And I was like, the game's easier if you just saw the movie, and she's going to tell us if that's true or if I done a manipulation on her. And then also we'll talk about the game, probably. Largely.
At least a little. Well, if I use my notes, we will. I just realized how long they were. Holy cow.
My notes are just yelling at me things. It says, listen to her.
Yeah. No, you should. I put so many words here. And, it's funny because as I'm writing, sometimes I don't especially if I'm playing a game or I'm watching a movie, I'm not paying attention to how much I'm putting down. So sometimes I'm done at the end, I'll look at it and I'm like, was this supposed to be an essay for school?
Right. Where was all this?
Yeah. It's great because I won't remember those little details. There's no way. So,
No, I know what I think almost every episode we do, I miss the main thing I wanted to say, the main crux of it. It's like the reason why we got excited for an episode. I usually forget the thing. I did it last episode, but I'm not confident what our last episode really was at this point. So I'm just gonna But all right. So let's start with what did you think of quickly the movie and then the game? Because there's a relation there in that it's the same thing.
Well, the movie jumped into right away being a movie. Things were happening, which seems to be what it liked doing in the last two movies too. Stuff's going on. Seriously, it really does. If I was thinking, because Paul, you mentioned, what movies people would want to watch with their kids and stuff. And I'm like, that's the cool thing about both the Last Crusade and the Temple of Doom is immediately stuff's happening. You're right in the movie. There's not a lot of long, boring dialogue. Things are happening, so him coming in with the cross and then getting in the backstory, getting to meet his extended family, seeing Sean Connery in it and stuff. I thought the movie had fun all the way through it. It did not feel like the 2 hours that it was.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that just on a personal note, because everyone listening, I was throwing it out there. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this movie holds up phenomenally well. Unless my son just saw the gleam in my eyes and just really tried hard to like it for me, I think it held up really well because he was 6 at the time and he was glued to it. And that's righty.
Well, the second one was really I think now I see why the second was my favorite. It wasn't just the Temple of Doom aspect. It was Shortstop. And it was it was the kid, man. I love the kid. That was probably why I liked the second one so much. And now that I'm older and I can grasp more into the storyline and see more of the complexities, the third one is starting to pull with quite a bit of charm.
Right. Yeah. I think as a kid, the reason I liked the third one more is because I got my mitts on this little pocket Bible that was the exact size and shape and dimensions of the Grail Diary.
Grail Diary.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it was. I got to reenact it in the living room. I remember jumping off the toy boxes and stuff, doing wrestling moves, mixing it up.
Right. No, that's good. Well, and the game, what also obviously featured the Grail Diary, made it very straightforward to use.
It did. Okay, here's something just to throw out there as far as a fetch quest for the listeners, because it's a preemptive note to that is that what's weird about doing this kind of show, and lovely and weird, I should say, in a lovely sense, is that it's often hard to, and this isn't a criticism I'm about to do, but it's hard to like criticize things because you know that like a decent amount, not a decent amount, and not that we know, but it's like developers of these games that we talk about have been guests on and listen to these shows, especially if it's like a game they done and like, oh, let's hear what they had to say about it. So it's a little weird doing this stuff. I feel like usually when there's a medium where you get on a thing and critique a thing, you don't really run the risk of the person hearing you unless you're like a major platform. So I guess you have to be really major, really niche, and then it happens again. That risk. But that being said,
we have definitely interviewed at least one person on the team for this game, so
right,
that's something to keep in mind.
Exactly, and it's heading in the direction of Noah Faustine. I was so bummed I didn't get to be on that episode. And Noah, if you happen to be listening and you want to come back on the show, that'd be awesome because I missed out on it. So I'd really like to chat with you. We could talk about other games in Fate of Atlantis. I mean, probably. I mean, I'll tell you that we can, but then, we largely would just talk about Fate of Atlantis because I think it's a perfect game. But anyway.
Just the nitty gritty is so fun.
Right, exactly. But you're splitting hairs and stuff. So anyway, to the Noah Faustine thing, and to your initial point, oh my God, I think I'm holding this together somehow. The Grail Diary that comes in the box that you reference was made by, well, first of all, it's illustrated by Steve Purcell of Sam & Max. But it says it was written by Mark Faustine. So I just wanted to kind of, I guess, confirm more than anything. But, well, not confirm it's his brother because I don't know what. Confirm that if it's a family member of Noah's.
It would make sense.
It has to be, I guess.
It would make sense. Well, obviously they were connected with Steve Purcell, right? They got your nod homage right at the beginning of the game again with your totem waiting happily for you.
All right, and I'm glad that you mentioned the totem thing because I was just thinking today, looking at it, that Sam & Max is in this game like while Sam & Max was still just a comic, if even a comic at that point. So that's kind of neat,
because they had to thank Steve Purcell personally in the ending credits of the game for the use of Sam & Max, which so now I understand why, because I didn't know that. I was just like, why him personally? If they've already got the games, they don't need to thank him. But dude, that's so cool.
Right. That is really cool. Look at that. See, that's the kind of stuff that makes listeners think we like had a plan coming into this. The way it just built off each other.
My life relies on happy coincidences. It just happens to be that you and I have a lot of them, Paul. That helps the listeners, right? They benefit from it. It's great.
Exactly. Arguably, anyway. Yeah. Well, what else is in that room? The office is really fun because there's the gem, the crystal from Zach McCracken. You can find that in there.
Yeah,
and
it's my favorite room visually outside of the room with the paintings in it.
Right.
When they go into the tomb and they find the tablet and they reveal the grave, and then the knight or King Richard or whoever it was that was in the grave was there, and he's just like all dead. And then that part with that one scene, like when he first opens the tomb before he does anything else, is flipping a masterpiece because it's a very simple game. In a few of the rooms, it uses a lot of color. Like the library is visually appealing, although it gets a bit old if you have to spend a lot of time in there to kind of going back and forth. But it's a beautiful game.
That's funny. That you said that was the amount of bitterness of somebody who just finished this game.
It's a little fresh in my mind. I apologize. I might complain about mazes a little too much here.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Well, and this one, I guess I'll mention my quick art thing real quick. I'll just say the one little art note I made was that there's a scene, and it's not a scene you even necessarily get. It's only if you go the path in which Hitler signs the pass for you. So when you're in front of Hitler and he's signing the thing, if you see that scene is amazing. It's just so beautiful. And I guess that's not true because I do have another note on sort of art that I misled myself again. It says Steve Purcell fits Indy. There's something about Purcell's style. It's just, I mean, obviously I'm not like making a revelation here because they brought him on board prior even to Sam & Max, but enough so to be like, here, actually, your characters are going to be one of our few games. That's how much you fit us. So it's not a revelation, but seeing his artwork in this game, it's really easy to tell what he done. Like I don't know. I feel like I'm starting to almost have an eye for his things. Where like when I was looking at Monkey Island stuff, his stuff was popping out, and there's something about there's like a sophistication in Indy and Purcell's work where it's like. It's not too tongue-in-cheek and it's not too bendy and cartoony, but it is a little. And like that's kind of how Indy is. Like he's a little tiny reserved for Goofy, silly,
Yeah.
but he's mostly not. And like,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to say that's all that because that's probably not Steve Purcell to say mostly not, because his things are largely silly. But it just fits with Indy so well. This kind of well dressed silly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well dressed silly. I like that. I like that idea. Yeah, and I like it. It's like it's stubby, but it's also round. But it's
Nice.
not uncomfortably so. It's quite good. Ooh,
Nice.
I also loved the ranked house. Was really well done. I
Mm-hmm.
really, really liked how they made everything look all cockeyed and kind of all like weird, and the door off the hinges, and just all the stuff on the ground. It was like exciting. I was like, wow, I really want to look through this room. It was really enticing.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's stay on positives right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just kind of say that this, exactly what you described, just reminded me of the kind of invigoration this game gave me in the sense of like freedom to explore. And it's
Mm-hmm.
all an illusion to a degree with adventure games, especially the older ones, but it perfectly captures that vibe, especially when you're describing in the beginning of the game, where like you kind of have this ability to walk around campus or go to Henry's house, go to Senior, go to Sean Connery's house. You can even return there before going to Venice. And I guess it's not like the most open world, but
Mm-hmm.
something back in the day, we didn't even need much. It was just a little bit of, there was definitely the spirit of adventure thing. And I guess that would spill into probably a later part of the conversation to say is you could, for people who aren't aware, this game was done in quite a rush,
Mm-hmm.
deadline wise for the film. And so I'll say that preemptively now for a lot of things I'll probably say later, which is you can see great ideas that maybe got cut short, or things that
Yeah.
you can see
Now that
like
you've
the birth of
said that,
Atlantis happening.
Jesus, because I have not researched anything into this game. I played it cold, right, guys? And then I watched the movie, I played the game, I took my notes on everything I watched and did, and I'm here. So I'm learning as we're going, and some of this stuff is just like going back in hindsight. It's like, oh yeah.
That's cool that you can validate that, because it's like, even okay, this is the least probably the weakest point I could add to that argument. I'll say off the bat, which is there's certain scenes in the catacombs that are very Atlantis looking. But
Mm-hmm.
I really don't even mean in aesthetics from what I said a second ago, but just as far as aesthetics go, you can see a hint of Atlantis for sure in the catacombs,
Mm-hmm.
in the walls and things like that, and the moist nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if I really threw myself at that, but it is less the visuals and just more like the path situation. I don't know. I could almost it's very very hard to articulate, but I could almost feel them wanting for time.
Right. Yeah, while you were playing it. Well, you can see that in some of the repetition of gameplay style to navigate each zone, as far as doing the light Rosella in the troll cavern style, right? You can have this little section. I'm just like, where
Yeah,
is the cheat that turns the light on everywhere? This would be so much easier.
yeah, yeah.
And I like, though, it's fun, like for example in the monkey, it reminded me of Monkey Island a little, in when you were having conversations with the guards and your little like back and forths between them, if you're choosing to do it all with words instead of with fighting them.
Right. Right. What did you liken that to a second ago?
Which what? Oh, Monkey Island and the
Right.
insult sword fighting, and it sort of kind of brought me to that conversational style that they went with there.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting, because I took a note about that as well, where it reminded me in a sense of I guess I've had on my mind, as mentioned possibly in the last episode, about Ron Gilbert, playing King's Quest and going on from there, and I do get some kind of King's Quest vibes
Hmm.
in that, where it's like, with the snake, for example. So I'm really struggling to
Right.
think of one, but with the snake, where it's like it's better not to fight kind of thing, and
Hmm.
that is kind of the undertone, I guess, of this story too, where the fighting option is there, but it's usually better not to.
Well, it directs you there immediately. You're in the game. All of a sudden, you have your conversation, and then there's like, oh, here's a boxing ring. I'm like, all right, well, I can't do much with it. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom. It's like, no, now you're going to box. I'm like, oh, and
Oh,
I
shame.
guess it must be worth some of those adventure points at the end if you end up boxing and beating him on all of the levels. Like, because I beat him at like the easiest one, and then I beat him at the next one, and I'm like, I figure I'll come back to this guy later. But it turns out, I guess it was just like a tutorial, so I wasn't sure, because I didn't realize there'd be a point system at the end.
Right. And well, so my takeaway of it is both. Is it that it's like
Hmm.
an introduction to the fighting mechanism, of the game, which I'll just say really quickly. Like I liked it. I think it's fine. Like it's for somebody who doesn't play anything but adventure games, I wouldn't even know if it was clunky, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But all that being said, it's like, yeah, it was totally like I didn't mind it. I wouldn't want it to like pop up in every adventure game, but I thought it was cool. What did you think of it, real quick?
What are we talking about?
Sorry, the fighting mechanism. That was my bad.
Yes. I wasn't sure if we moved on to a different subject. You can keep that. It's all right. Everybody brain gaps. But yeah, no, it was fun. The fighting made sense. You're using the numeral pad. I thought maybe somebody that played that might have played Sierra Championship Boxing, because I'm kind of like thinking that was one of the original boxing games, and it kind of had that vibe to it.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's very true. My retort is, it sounds oddly mean. I'm not trying to be mean, so I'm just not going to say it. It's where like the clunky comes from. There's like a simplistic design, which again I like. Like I'm in the middle of an adventure game. I don't want to learn how to fight right now. I just want to mash a few buttons. So I think they nailed it. But yeah. So to your point, with the IQ thing, so I never understood the IQ thing until preparing for this episode 30 minutes ago. And
you're doing a learning.
Exactly. And it's called the Indy quotient, or IQ. And I just thought it was just, I don't know, just a trademarky name for their point system, but it's actually pretty cool. It is how they approached, let's say, a Steam achievement award. Like if Steam wasn't around, I would actually be dead curious as to how to implement this in the Phantom Fellows game, because it's pretty brilliant. Now with Steam and with the achievements, there's no need, I guess you could argue. And GOG's achievements too, but it's pretty cool because it remembers, in a quest for glory kind of sense, it remembers your replays and where you are. So it's not just did you get the most amount of points, it's have you unlocked every path and every option and every avenue in the game.
Right. So you play it straight up with talking, only you play it with only fighting, different things.
Yeah, like where like, if you there's a lot of different paths, right? So it's like if you use the path and go the Hitler signs your path route, or if you go the checkpoint route, and so there's a ton of those. So yeah. So it's kind of their way of saying like, hey, you'll know when you've done everything we thought of when you get to 800 IQ points.
I did not know that. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
I was totally prepared to just rip on it. Like the thing I was going to say negatively was arguably funnier, but then I learned about what it really did, and I was like, oh, well, that's actually pretty cool. How'd they do that?
It certainly was comforting in its predictability, though. The whole game itself, the way you traveled, the scenarios, you knew what was coming, you knew what was going to happen. The only difference was, of course, they changed up the puzzles to make it make sense in a computer game. And also, speaking of that, it's like LucasArts really does puzzles different from Sierra.
Go on.
Yeah, it's like LucasArts is like conversation mixed with very specific puzzle types. It seems to be broken up into like mazes and symbols. Okay, then you might say Sierra does the same thing, but somehow it seems like in a LucasArts game, you're more forced through it. There's no easy way through it. There's more like, this is a thing you have to do. You have to get through it to move on. And I felt in a lot of Sierra games, they'd give you an out a little bit more.
Right. I know what you mean, because there is a feeling, and I guess to keep it balanced, there's Gabriel Knight runs the risk of this as well, where you can feel a little bit stuck in the dialogue. Yeah. And then I might even argue it has to your point, that it might have something to do with the Scum GUI system, I guess you could call it, like the on-screen, the way that the dialogue is done, which is the same way it's being done in Phantom Fellows, and I think that Sierra largely did, where it's blacked out at the bottom of the screen with dialogue. There's something about that can make you feel kind of, with LucasArts, that a lot of times you got to run that tree all the way down, and that's, I guess, a danger, right? Because that's when you kind of check out mentally and risk just clicking through them all.
Right, and then missing information, because in some others it's like, yeah, you got to pick right, or because all the other options are going to disappear now. Right.
Because
that happens. I don't know, my opinion on that's divided, but that's for another episode.
Right. Yeah. No. Regardless. So just, it's like the burst of an idea to think on is are they more dialogue based puzzles in a sense? Or does it just
They're
feel that
more,
way?
but like the puzzles themselves are just very puzzly. This is a maze. This is a number game. This you have to go back and forth here 16 times, pick up the thing, put it over here, put the book over here, talk to the guy, come over here. It just, to me, both that one and the other Indiana Jones game, the, Atlantis one, they're both kind of like that in that way. It's like, it's very, very, very divided between gameplay, dialogue, and puzzles. And it's just different from
Ah.
Sierra games to me in that layout. It's like, and I
think
found a few puzzles in the other Indiana Jones game too that I found really challenging for me to get through.
Okay, so are you saying perhaps like it feels like with in a sense it feels like now you do puzzles and now you listen to parts of the story and now
Right.
you talk to characters and now you do a puzzle and now
Yes,
you
like
listen
it's
to the
pieced
story.
together. Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's
I get
very
that.
pieced together. And I'm saying I get it. Sierra does that too, and I'm having a hard time articulating what I mean, but it's not in the same layout.
Right. No, I completely understand, and unfortunately, I'm of no assistance in the articulation. But we could totally think on that and come back to it at a
Yeah.
different time because that's very interesting. Yeah,
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah, it just, but yeah, it was okay. I'm not a big fan of mazes. Like I said, it's fine.
No.
I write out cold, just figure where everything out was and memorize it? No, I probably would have gotten better with time, but I had to kind of look up on the map which way I wanted to go. But at least it's like bad guys aren't stopping and fighting you everywhere, like in some other games, like Final Fantasy or something. I mean, you can make your way through and you get to know where the guards are and you get to know where every room is, and you know.
And depending on the routes you go in this game, it can be really punishing because if you and I don't understand all the past and all the so I can't say Atlantis is very clean in the sense where it's like I could say if you
Hmm.
did the team path then you would experience this, and
Hmm.
there's not I can't do that with this game. So all I can really say is that there is a scenario in which you have to do the maze in the catacombs. You have to do not a maze in the castle.
Hmm.
Um, what is it's not Grunwald, is it Brunwald? Is it a B or an E? Doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
not really a maze in the castle, but it's basically just
Hmm.
navigation. It kind of sucks. I don't like walking around the castle. Um, and then there's also a scenario, in this scenario, the third one would be at the end. There's like the ladders and like this. I don't know if you're inside the Zeppelin. I think you are. Is that the one you got?
Yeah, I got stuff in the Zeppelin. I wasn't there yet. I was just lamenting over the boar and how it was like not hot the second you turned off the fire.
Okay. But yeah, so
Carry
that's
on.
three
No,
mazes. That's way too many mazes in a
no, it
game.
was three, and I did. I mean, I can't help it. My brain did say, "Oh God, not another maze." And there was a few times my brain was like, "Oh, of course, there's a puzzle here."
Right. Right. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I
Yeah.
noticed. I've never really paid attention. I don't think before to like what Lucas was doing similar to Sierra. I usually kind of look at the differences, and maybe it was again from that thing, the Gilbert thing we talked about last week. But
Hmm.
the first maze in the catacombs is very Space Quest 2-ish, isn't it?
I was thinking about the comparison maze-wise to the Space Quest games, and then I was also like I said, the breaking up, how they broke it up with the funny little scenes and the cast of characters and stuff. It was like this game was kind of almost like an experiment. It felt like they were really new. Even the cursor, it was a little bit awkward to wield at point, to get it to click exactly where you wanted to click. Sometimes my brain was just like, I'm so tired of making this cursor do the thing, like the plane part where you're flying the planes and you're trying to aim it and then you've got to bomb the other
Right.
planes before they obviously bomb you after and stuff.
I
I'm
got
just like,
so stuck there. I got so
oh my
stuck on
God,
the plane.
over and over. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to your point just a second ago, that I think that's where I started thinking of like the that's the part where it's like Atlantis is the game maybe they were trying to make, or if they had
Yeah.
time to that it would have been. And I was saying a second ago, like in Atlantis, you had the team path, and it was very clear which path you were on. And this one, it didn't. And those are probably all things they would have addressed if they weren't in a crunch because of the movie getting out and the deadline and releasing it alongside of that or whatever. So, it's really cool that they're able to do the Atlantis thing because and then it does beg that question where it's like you start this big complex thing with paths, and then in this situation where if you run out of time, then it's like, well, all that path ended up being was kind of a maze. Like there's nothing there except for like with the checkpoints that are just like over and over and over again. It's like it's yeah, that was a pass. All right.
I got to the Zeppelin and I'm like, oh, at least there won't be any mazes here. And then I'm like,
Right.
oh
There's not
no,
gonna
it's
be
3-dimensional mazes. There's
Right.
there's under and upper and lower mazes.
It's a weird Donkey Kong element to it. That's great.
It was very 3D.
We got
At
the
no
guard
time
coming
was
down.
the guard, yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying? At no time was it what?
Oh God, I don't know. That was a long time ago. Dude. Carry on.
That's very fair.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm. But my favorite of the guards was the tattooed dude, the like Biff Nazi looking guy that was guzzling and all of that. That one was really funny. That one stood out as a funny moment.
Yeah, that one was awesome. You get that guy drunk, I think, to get past him. Yeah.
Drunk. And then they got the little bubbles coming out of their head. I loved how they did the drunkenness in the art side.
Yes, and speaking of sort of that, not really, but sort of, this is a very swastika heavy game. Oh my God.
I was wondering how many there was going to be. You could almost play like, take a shot every time you see a swastika. Okay. Be real drunk, though.
A quick, I guess, a shout out to, well, not I guess, definitely a shout out to Adventure Game Geek on YouTube. His channel is awesome. If you're not aware of it, check it out. And I was watching his video on this for a little refreshing or whatever, and I'm just glad he said it. You know, being the Jew, it's like maybe that's just me. You never really know how much people notice these things. And I am making an assumption on Adventure Game Geek, but I don't think he is also Jewish. And for him to say it was cathartic, I'm like, okay, thank you. Because even when the Nazi gets knocked out, instead of like little birds, it's little swastikas. I mean, it's just they're everywhere, except for in the German game. Version of the game because of because of German laws. Okay. They're replaced by black squares with red dots, I believe, and
that's why I think one of the playthroughs I checked out had that effect going, because occasionally I'd flip over and see what somebody else was doing.
Yeah,
and it looked different. I was wondering why, because it wasn't in English. So yeah, that could have been it.
Yeah, the German criminal code, I think it is. Yeah, so they're not allowed to do that. But there is one overlooked, a swastika totally snuck its way back into Germany in this game. A dramatic way of putting it. When a guard's knocked out in a fist fight, those swastika stars that I was talking about. So one of the guards' knockouts in the German version still has the swastika. Yeah.
Right. That's fancy. I love little details like that, though. And the game, it never could be made now how it was made, no matter what the subject matter. It was of its time and place. 89, 90 was such a magical sort of developing time for all games, where graphics and everything really started to bloom into what became the next generation of adventure games before we decided we didn't want any for a decade or two.
Yeah, no, I'm glad he said that too, because this is in that total sweet spot of like, that later AGI, SCI 0 for on the Sierra side of things, where, and I guess I would say to equate it on the LucasArts, it's like for the LucasArts games that had the EGA and the VGA version, right? Not like a graphic card upscale, but like a independently drawn version of each. Those it's just such a nice period of time, because then you get to, and I should say too, obviously. Or I should obviously say now that there is an EGA and a VGA version of this. And there's also a CD-ROM version of it that you could get from like the White Label or something collection, and also the archives. And that version, I believe, has some additional music and or sound.
Oh, right. I wanted to say this is entirely related. At the end of the game, when I'm watching the credits, it said it was programmed at Skywalker Ranch and that movie, Laserdisc, and videotapes are available from Paramount Pictures, which I thought was awfully cool.
Oh, that's cool. Wow. You said fun little facts. I've got one more for this one, which is you can obtain a diary. I believe it's earlier in the game. And the diary becomes like it's not the Grail diary. I should totally say that.
It's your version, the one that you did when you were a kid.
Yes, and it's interesting in the sense that it's not confirmed in the game or otherwise that it is that. But I never really got into Young Indiana Jones, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with it, and I'm at least familiar with it enough to know that the journal is a big part of Young Indiana Jones adventures.
Yeah, because that's what he said when he pulled it out. He's like, oh, hey, what do you know? It's the one I made to imitate my dad's when I was a kid.
Interesting. Okay. So I guess what the kind of fandom people are saying is like, So does he mean in a replica sense, or does he mean like, okay? So I guess we'll just say,
because he said he wanted to play along with his dad so that he could pretend to, be a grown-up explorer like his dad was. Is kind of what the game said to me.
Very cool. See, that sounds much more clear than the wiki made it sound.
Mm-hmm.
Like it sounds almost like it definitely is. Well, it all doesn't matter, that's for sure. So there's that. But oh wait, I've got another fun one that I didn't know and I've never seen. But if you look out, I don't know how specific it is. If it's like any window, I don't even remember how many windows are. You could help me with that. But if you look out the window in the castle, at least at some point, then you can actually see what's her name as a Nazi ahead of time.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, and then you would know. What's her name, by the way, is Dr. Elsa Schneider.
That's right. Thank you.
Yes.
Gosh.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool. That was the kind of thing that made me want to go back and do it. And here's what I was going to say is negatively as far as the IQ thing. Before I knew it was actually a cool system, was because I think you're with me because you didn't know it either until today. Yeah. So we both probably just thought it was like a gimmicky point system, right? Because they tried to do that a lot at this time because they were convinced that adventure games didn't have replayability factor. And I just beg to differ. I think they definitely underestimated the nerd in us.
I did not expect to see a points thing because I'm like, this is a LucasArts game. I said, what does it matter if I box this guy 100 times or win him once or twice in a game like LucasArts? It makes no fucking difference. And then all of a sudden I'm at the end and I'm like, oh, you were judging me the whole time. Okay.
Right.
Like, I didn't know, man. Would have put more effort in.
Yeah, exactly. I literally wish I knew what it was for too, because they definitely did the point system better. That's a much cooler way to do it. I just didn't know they were doing it.
No, and not compounding. It's like maybe every time you use the whip, it gave you like the John Williams, like do 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 do, like the whole hurrah. It's like, does that when I'm getting points?
Right. And then there's that too. Yeah. Yeah, that is very confusing. But I don't know. Oh yeah, I was going to say that they underestimate us because I think the little things like going back to find little things. It's like I don't know, people. Like we're okay with just like I guess what I'm trying to say is that they underestimated, and by they I mean Sierra and LucasArts and just in general with the gimmicks for replayability, they underestimated just how comforting that kind of stuff is. Like how we all just love to rewatch the same movie and beat it to death because it feels good. It's like, don't worry, if the thing's good, it might become one of those things that one of us does that too. So exactly,
because we know there's still games that we pull out once or twice a year and go, that feels so freaking good.
Yeah, exactly. And so, okay, speaking of, how was the Speaking of Space Quest? Oh, because that's the game I play constantly, right? So is Space Quest 2 the one where he's got the diamond, the gem in his mouth, and he's crawling around, and it's like it's a spotlight maze, kind of like the catacombs?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Just wondering, because I don't know, I guess I got it in my head that Ron Gilbert's only played probably those first generation Sierra games and was like, okay, I know what to do.
Is that the one you have to swim with the gem and stuff too, right? If I'm recalling that it's number 2.
Possibly, yeah.
I think it's. I'm like 95% sure you're good. Number 2. I'm going to call it. Carry on.
Right, because number 2 more on the planet. All right.
Yeah, and he has to hold in his mouth and the graphics. Yeah, no, I'm going to call it. That's it.
Yeah, well, that puzzle and the catacombs one, not puzzle, those mazes, they're the worst. Just
they are awful.
You can't see in front of you. Like I guess I don't know. I have this vision of Lucas being just so above Sierra in many perspectives. To which I'm surprised if I saw something in a previous Sierra game that I'm seeing again in a Lucas game, I'm surprised it's something terrible like that, like a spotlight maze.
Space Quest 4 did the maze well, though. If you went the wrong way, the green slime's going to get you. It's like, fun. Oh, you went this way, you died. Okay, you went this way, you had to fight the droid or whatever. So you're like, okay, so very quickly with saving and restoring, you can map out exactly where you're supposed to go.
Right. I said that's fun, and then you mentioned all that, and it's like just so many people are like, that's not fun. You have to die and save and restore. It's insane. Well, guess what? You die in this game too, my dudes. And we're not going to harp on it because I think a lot of Ron's why adventure games suck. It was like a reflection on a lot of. I could be wrong. I could be misremembering this, but I feel like perhaps he was reflecting on this game among other things when he wrote that. So there's no need to rub their noses in it, but you can die in this game, so that's fun.
Yeah,
literally. I enjoyed it.
Well, it's like you could die in Monkey Island. That's fun. I personally like, once. But anyways, I personally like dying in games because I think it's a great function. So again, and I've mentioned it before on the podcast, I always wanted to find all of the deaths. So I was just a serial saver. Can I die here? Can I die here? Okay, now I know how not to die. What are the things I could try to die now?
Right. So yeah, because I know we're the same way. Like you walk into a fresh room, like a catacomb room for the first time, and there's 3 different routes. Bam, you save. Because it's like anything you do could affect, that, or at least that's kind of how it should be. And in Indiana Jones, or in this game's defense, because it's such a mouthful to say this bloody game, in this game's defense, there is a very Sierra-like mechanism here where if you don't read the what are them things called on the inscriptions? If you don't read an inscription on the wall before you pull the cork with your whip and break the bridge with the water, if you don't read that, then you wouldn't know. I guess pre-internet, let's say.
Because he just kind of all of a sudden goes, oh, I know how to do this.
Right. Yeah. So and so that is kind of in a Sierra-like move. If you hadn't already read one of the inscriptions, then you would have missed their hint. I guess you could say it's not truly a Sierra-y move because it's not that bad of a consequence. But then at the same time, with like Turian, I hope I say that right, Shepard, who's another awesome YouTuber that you've heard us mention before, so check him out. Turian. I might have just made it worse. Doesn't matter.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, he's awesome, and he was quite frustrated at this game for ending reasons we're making our way towards, and I could just say that it's not super clear. Like I guess it is kind of Sierra-y because. Okay, what I'm trying to say is that people did need this hint. It seems like, and the hint is basically regarding. Actually, I have it specifically, so let's be specific. It'll tell you that there's basically, it'll give you 2 options for which the Grail is at the very end. And it'll direct you to the diary that the game came with and where you should look in the diary. And then in the diary, it'll give you 2 options as like a fail safe. So anyway, sorry. But I think it's kind of funny that we both kind of got excited about that kind of stuff because it's a consequence thing. It's like if you don't do this thing, then you miss it, and that's why we said when we walk into a room with 3 entrances like that, we save it right away. It's like
exactly. I'm putting my page. I'm putting my finger in the go to page 36 if you want to open the left door. Go to page 92 if you want to open the right door, and I'm leaving my finger in that first page. That's all it's doing.
Right. Exactly. Well, I guess in a positive swing for this game, I will say, as I was bitching about the castle. Well, first of all, let me ask you, having just played it, what did you think about the castle part in general? Odd amount of wardrobe changes in this game, no?
Yeah, a lot of back and forth. A lot of like you had to know who you had to dress like to talk to each person, to do each scenario, to go on to the next scene. I found I was like, at this point, because I was powering through the game a little bit, I was finding it a little bit tedious, but fun. I thought it was kind of neat. I thought the concept was fine. It was a kind of a cool kind of puzzle, and it was reminiscent of a different game. And I can't for the life of me remember which one it was, where you had to change what you were wearing over and over again to talk to different people to make it through. But I can't remember what game it was. What else did I say about it? The IndieWare, right? I thought the whole idea of the IndieWare was funny. I thought that the censor bar was pretty hilarious, though, right?
Yeah.
That they were, because you were just like, because almost every game you play otherwise in Sierra, it's like, you can't change here. There's no privacy. You always have to go behind a screen or like in another place or behind a closed door. So I was like, how are they dealing with this? Because obviously some of the places that you change, there is no place to hide. So the sort of fourth wall kind of humor of the censor bar was, funny. Also, the dog in the castle that was like, after you give him the thing and he's all eating, the sound effects that they used for the dog was pretty hilarious too.
Yeah, that was good. That was I like what you said about the censor bar too, because that's a nice example of that like silly in a suit thing, where it's like it's a really good solution to a problem design wise of the game, where it's like, well, this is within the indie kind of realm. And we can skip a lot of BS by just letting them do it anywhere.
Yeah, and like I said, Biff, the Nazi guy who was there, he was pretty funny. And then afterwards, when you're all tied up in the chair and you're like, oh my God, this is so the movie, but it took forever. You're like, you have to rock your way over to the fireplace and stuff. It was cute. I mean, it was so like, this is where you're really falling into the movie hard too. You're just like, yep. Moment for moment, really true. Like if ever somebody were to say, wow, that game is a faithful adaptation, I could not argue with them, because that is about the closest And I guess that's why it's rushed, right? Because they didn't have to come up with a plot or a storyline as such. All they had to do was take the exact storyline that was coming out of the movie and then adapt it with puzzles. Boom, you have a game, you have a movie, you can release, moving on, next project.
Right. Yeah. Well put. It makes me wonder how much of the game. I'm sorry. How much of the movie they saw. How much of the storyboard, the design, because it's pretty damn bang on. So like now I'm wondering if David Fox and Noah and Ron Gilbert like had access to like pre-screenings or just like what exactly they got to see to get it down so pat. But yeah, you're right. It's really faithful. And then you mentioned how close to the movie it was in that particular scene, and I had to note that way earlier in the game when you're manipulated / hired by Donovan to go for the Grail and you find your dad's missing, or you learn that it was your dad that's missing.
Right.
I'm wondering now if it's the like Donovan scenes that are almost identical, right? Because it seems like when he's doing a monologue, it's like right from the movie.
Yeah, like honestly, I swear there was quite a few where I could mouth right along with exactly what they were saying because they're such iconic lines from. To be clear, I've seen the movie before. It was just a long time ago. It's just this is the first time, at least in more than a decade or two, that I've watched them, especially all in order like that. So
yeah, exactly. God. Anything we've seen, like, as kids, or like that doesn't count at all for memory for me.
Nothing.
I just like tell myself, yes, you've seen it. And that's it. Like, I don't know anything about it, but I've seen it.
You have the equivalent of the trailer of it in your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Generously, perhaps. Yeah. And to be clear to listeners, not this film. This is one of my favorite movies ever. I said that earlier with the Bible stuff, so we're good. That was a weird way to put that, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, the Bible's not your... No, we won't get into that either, though. It's fine.
Right, yeah. That's panic button stuff. So.
We've talked about Nazis enough in this episode.
All right, what else I got? I got odd amount of wardrobe changes. Yes. That kind of covers the castle, I guess. There's a whole bunch of different routes. There's a big pain in the butt thing. Okay, so tell me, did you see Hitler? Did you have him sign your pass, or did you go like the checkpoint route?
No, I went the checkpoint route.
Oof, me too.
Yeah, I did not even know that was an alternative.
You can skip it.
Well, I mean, you knew, but you can. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's rough. I didn't know till today. I don't think it was clear to me till today because I've played this game like 3 times and I always had to go to the checkpoint because I guess you have to dress into a servant's costume.
Yeah, and then you have to go back to it twice. Yeah,
because I think we all probably tried what was correct, but in the wrong uniform, in the wrong costume.
Yeah. Oh, there was a lot to it. It was getting a little confusing.
Yeah, no, it's really quite convoluted. I think I actually wrote it down for some reason, but you get the pass in the castle. I see. I didn't write down how you even get to that point, but you get the pass in the castle, and that pass has a combination which opens a safe in the gallery, and inside of the safe is a painting of the Mona Lisa. Or the safe is maybe behind the Mona Lisa.
The safe is behind the Mona Lisa because she has the obvious kind of coating right in behind where the tear is on the painting in the art room.
Oh, nice. I forgot that. Okay. And then that safe shows the Grail, but in my case, it was not the Grail.
Because I was like, oh, paint by number Mona Lisa was the comment. I'm like, oh, of course it's a puzzle.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I see now, yeah. When you walk into a room and you're like, that's going to be the thing I interact with.
Yeah. Exactly, because but it was fun too looking at all the things. Again, cursor, by this time in the game I was feeling a little cursor weary with that tiny little freaking dot to direct over
like
everything.
Crosshair, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a crosshair, and the game was kind of in the ratio where it's almost widescreen style. So even though the text was on the bottom, and I looked at a few videos online, this just seems to be the format that this game is in, because if you make it any bigger to fit the screen, you'll have to cut off the sides, right? It's just the ratio.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's cool. I didn't know. Well, not cool, but cool that I didn't know it.
I
like knowing things. All right. Well,
yeah, I would say that's probably. I mean, do you have anything else you want to add about this other than if you're going to play the game, probably watch the movie first if you want it to be easier?
Yeah. No. Well, I agree and no. I got stupid stuff. If you in the library, there's Gregorio Lucasi. I think written on one of the books. Oh, there's pixel hunting in this game. That sucks.
Yeah, there's a lot of pixel hunting when you're in the library and in various other places.
I might argue that this game is a good candidate for a walkthrough. I don't know. Like, there's just And I get how that's just I don't know, it's just not going to happen for a lot of people, which is totally fair enough. But it's like I guess I'm just saying instead of just not playing it at all, if that's what it came down to, I would give it the 90 minutes with a walkthrough instead, because it's pretty fun with the walk. Because you've seen the movie. It doesn't matter. Like it's not like the walkthrough is going to spoil things. It's just it's kind of a rogue scenario here. It's like you kind of just emulating the movie.
It made me laugh a few times. It was funny. It was amusing, and it gave me the same good feel that all LucasArts games give me. It was a little early, and like not as tedious, say, as Maniac Mansion is a fun game, but this is obviously a little bit more advanced than that. So it's really on its way to becoming a pretty fantastic game. I wonder if there's anywhere in the works to have any kind of a remake on it, even just touching up the pixels a bit.
Good question. I'm also curious about the FM Towns version of this, because there is an FM Towns version, and they're traditionally a lot more magnificent, I guess you could say. But I don't know that this one actually looks any different than the VGA version. Like I'm not sure if I got able to check that out, because I guess in this case, right, FM Towns is usually like the remaster, the equivalent of a remaster. They're so nice looking. But I wanted to say that in the castle earlier is the origin of the selling fine leather jackets line.
Of course, that's where it came from originally. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, in the castle. I like that. Here in Monkey Island and Full Throttle, at least that I know of. At least those two, probably more. What else? I think that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, I like driving around. I wrote down way too many specifics. If you guys take the biplane, push and pull the handle. I was stuck on that for so long. Yeah. You got to push it, and that's because they'll tell you to pump it or whatever. Yeah. It's very confusing. You got to push and pull a lot.
All of it. That whole plane thing was, in essence, it was really a cool idea, but I found it, again, even further into my play, a little extra frustrated. I'm not really taking any breaks. I'm like, we're doing a podcast episode. We've got a time. I'm muscling through this. So by that point, I'm just like, are you freaking serious?
Yeah. And then you get taken down like immediately. I'm like, that was a lot, dude. I mean, I was in the sky for like 33 seconds. We're already shot down. Are you serious?
Because you already know you're getting shot down anyways, but it's just like, no, you need to follow the movie and you make some shots first. So
yeah, it reminds me too. I always say that Atlantis might be a perfect game, and that's where it gets the most questionable, is in that hot air balloon. The hot air balloon travel's a little dodgy, a little drifty.
Yeah, a little dodgy, a little drifty.
Reins are loose.
Actually, that part frustrated me quite a bit. In that game. It did.
We should end on a positive note.
We should.
So we just don't have one. Just, it's a good game. We like it. And
we both, it was worth playing. Even I would have played it probably even if I wasn't going to just talk about it after. But there's something satisfying about playing a game and then immediately running to all of your many friends, at least, a few of you out there, and going, hey, check it out. I just played a game I never played before. It was so much fun. Let me talk about it.
So that's what this was.
That is exactly what this was. And that concludes today's episode of the Classic Gamers Guild podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Well, I don't know. It's a little deep. If you want to stay connected with us and stay updated on future episodes, you can follow us on Twitter at CGG Podcast and at Phantom Fellows. Like us on Facebook at Classic Gamers Guild. Join us on Instagram at CGG Podcast, which, believe it or not, I've actually been updating. Send us an email. We love getting those at mail@classicgamersguild. Send us an email, mail@classicgamersguild.com. Try the second one, not the first one I just told you. And don't forget to check our Patreon page at patreon.com, Classic Gamers Guild, to support the show, which some of you actually still are. And we really appreciate it. And we talk about you guys a lot more than you know. It's true. We really do. We have a lot of thinking that happens. It's important to us. So anyways, thanks for listening. And we'll see you next week for another exciting adventure in gaming.
But also, don't do murder.
Thanks.